What if Anakin Skywalker had visions of becoming Darth Vader as a child? Let's start this story when Anakin is 5 years old. He and his mother Shmi have just moved to Tatooine after they were sold to the slaver Watto. They lived a simple life, working long days under their slave master, but they had each other, and their love kept them strong. However, Anakin knew he was destined for more, and was determined to break his mother out of slavery. One night, after a long shift at Watto's shop, Anakin went to sleep. It was an ordinary night, but his dreams were far from it. Anakin fell into a nightmare, as the world around him became dark, except for a glow of distant fire. Out of the shadows, a figure stepped forward, tall and unnatural, wrapped in black that seemed to swallow the light. The figure's mask was the worst part, smooth and lifeless, with dark-eyed lenses that showed nothing but reflecting everything back at him. The mouth did not move, yet a deep, mechanical breathing came from it, steady and inhuman, like the figure is more machine than man. As it gets closer, the mask fills his vision, cold and empty, and Anakin could not look away. It feels wrong, like there should be a face there, but there is only that blank, black shell. The breathing grows louder, echoing inside his head until he feels like it belongs to him, and that is what truly terrified him. He jolted awake out of the nightmare in a pool of sweat as he tried to reflect on his dream, but it's fair to say, young Anakin did not sleep for the rest of the night. These nightmares continued to happen every couple of nights for the foreseeable future. Focus on that black mechanical man. But Anakin developed a sort of curiosity towards him, and started building small sculptures made of spare droid parts to resemble the figure's black mask. He does a couple of these and brings them into the shop. Watto asked Anakin what it was, who took the sculpture off him. He was fascinated. This was a work of art, creative, innovative, and exactly the type of piece he and his friends who were interested in art would keep. But this gave Watto an idea. The Outer Rim art auction was happening next week, and he saw this as an opportunity for money. He listed the sculpture Anakin made as a rare antique find, made from an artist long dead 100 years ago, and it gained a lot of attention, and the bidding price rose significantly. However, this art would make its way back to someone Watto never expected. Palpatine had contacts all around the galaxy who were searching for Sith artifacts, and one of them recognized the details of the Sith design on the sculpture of Vader's mask, and reported this to Palpatine. When the Sith Lord looked at the pictures, he couldn't believe it. These were his designs. Had someone stolen them? He instantly went to Tatooine and confronted Watto in his shop, asking how he got it. After a short interrogation, Watto revealed it was his slave boy Anakin who had made the sculpture. This intrigued Palpatine, and he paid Anakin a visit whilst he was sleeping. He reached out with the Force and could sense this boy has a strong innate connection, and tested his midichlorians, over 20,000. He couldn't believe it. This child was insanely strong in the Force, strong enough to dream of the future of Vader's armor. The next day, Palpatine engineered an accident at the moisture farm Shmi was working at for the day. He sabotaged the equipment as one of the vaporizers exploded, taking out Shmi in the blast. Anakin was devastated when the news hit him. The only person in his life who loved him was now gone. The next day after Anakin's shift, Palpatine met him in the street, giving the boy his condolences, telling him he had worked with Shmi and was sorry for his loss. However, in this moment of vulnerability, offered for Anakin to come with him off this planet to start a new life where he would take care of him. With nothing left on Tatooine and the opportunity to leave his life as a slave, he decided to join Palpatine, who took Anakin with him back to Coruscant. He takes Anakin to the industrial region, where he establishes his new life, and slowly after a few weeks, reveals the truth of his powers as a Sith Lord, and offers to train Anakin. Skywalker accepts and begins his tutelage as Palpatine's Padawan. Meanwhile, Palpatine kept Anakin's secret from his master Darth Plagueis, as he saw Anakin as the key to him taking over the Sith Empire for himself. He knew Plagueis believed the rule of two to be futile, that it no longer served its purpose. However, he knew he secretly wanted the power for himself. Whilst Palpatine began Anakin's training, he also had to balance training Maul at a different facility on the planet, whereas Anakin was kept in the industrial region. Palpatine initially trained Anakin in stealth, allowing him to be able to hide his presence in the Force, while he gave Anakin free reign to explore and thrive in the poor areas on Coruscant, believing it would benefit his training. A few years went by, and Anakin's power increased. He was extremely proficient with a lightsaber, which came easily to him, and his connection to the Force was growing every day. He was strong telekinetically, and could use Force choke at will. However, his next step was to master Sith lightning. In the past few months, Palpatine and Plagueis had been planning the Naboo crisis, so they could force Chancellor Valorum out of office and create sympathy for Palpatine. However, Plagueis sensed that something was not quite right. Previously in his mind, the Sith's victory was already assured. There was no way they could lose. However, he sensed something different from Palpatine. Was it perhaps betrayal? Plagueis assumed it was regarding Maul, and realized he'd allowed Palpatine to train an apprentice for himself, and with their combined strength, could potentially overwhelm him. So Plagueis decided it was time to reveal himself to Maul as Palpatine's master, and take over part of his training. However, secretly, Plagueis tells Maul if he spies on Palpatine and does what he says, then perhaps in the future he could take Palpatine's place and become a true Sith Lord, rather than a mere assassin. At the promise of power, Maul agrees to Plagueis' request and becomes his spy. We reach the Naboo crisis in the Phantom Menace, however, with no Anakin on Tatooine for Qui-Gon to use to get the funds for their ship to bring Queen Amidala back to Coruscant. The blockade of Naboo takes much longer. It takes weeks for Padme to return to Coruscant. However, it had the same effect in the Senate, as Palpatine manipulates her to call for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum and his removed from office. With the truth of the Naboo crisis revealed, weeks and weeks of occupation by the Trade Federation, this created enough sympathy for Palpatine to be voted in as the next Chancellor of the Republic. In his first act, he drove the Trade Federation away from Naboo, while secretly communicating with Nute Gunray as Sidious to release the blockade. He gained a lot of support for this, and used this initial backing to announce his second motion, that Darth Plagueis, or better known to the galaxy as Hago Damask, famous businessman, and Mun, would become co-chancellor, and their unity would bring prosperity that the Republic had never seen before. All's grand in the galaxy, and they spend the next couple of years leading the Republic while creating the separatist movement in the shadows. The next big move was to recruit Count Dooku, which Plagueis did personally, and he had been planting the seeds for his fall to the dark side for decades. During this time, Plagueis continues to ask Maul about Palpatine, whether he's planning anything, but Maul has nothing to report yet. The Sith continued their plan for years, procuring more funds, Dooku manipulating Sifo-Dyas into ordering the clone army, killing him and taking control. Everything was going to plan. However, Plagueis knew something was up. The dark side had changed. It had grown distant from him, and it had latched onto Palpatine. He was planning something, he knew it, and he decided to investigate, as Plagueis and Maul secretly followed Palpatine one day. They followed his ship, hidden by a cloaking device, as Palpatine made his way to the industrial region for his next training session with Anakin, now 16 years old, with the power of a Sith Master. Palpatine stood opposite Anakin, ready for their next lesson, a spar which Palpatine enjoyed because Anakin was a true test of his power. However, as they were about to begin, Palpatine felt it through the Force. Plagueis and Maul were here, and they must have followed him. He turns to see them standing at the entrance and curses himself for not sensing it. Plagueis asks what the meaning of this is. Who is this boy? Palpatine stands firm, telling Plagueis that this boy is his apprentice and the future of the Sith Order. But Plagueis scoffs, telling Palpatine that they were meant to be the future of the Sith. But Palpatine shakes his head and tells Plagueis he was merely their guide, that he and Anakin, the true Sith Master and apprentice, are the heir to the Empire. Plagueis dropped his head, disappointed. He truly wanted he and Palpatine to sit atop the Sith throne, believing the rule of two had ended, but he was mistaken. So be it, he said, and ignited his blade and rushed at Palpatine. Plagueis and Palpatine moved like a blur. They had clashed blades thousands of times in training sessions, but now this was the real deal. They stabbed with murderous intent, looking to take the other out and secure the mantle of Dark Lord of the Sith. They were equal, however. Across the room, they both turned as Maul screamed out in pain after Anakin severed his hand from his wrist. He went for the killing blow, but Plagueis reached out with the Force and sent Anakin flying back, crashing against the far wall. He and Maul took their opportunity and escaped. Palpatine went up to Anakin, congratulating him on his victory against Maul, but this was not over yet. Plagueis and Maul go to Sereno to meet with Dooku to tell him that Palpatine has betrayed them and the Sith. He has attempted to take power for himself, and thus, he is their enemy. Plagueis is frustrated. He thinks of what to do. He believes the rule of two was over with him, but he realizes Darth Bane was right. There would always be infighting between the Sith, and it's his own failures that led to Palpatine's betrayal. However, as part of their plans, it's important they remain hidden. He couldn't just expose Palpatine's identity to the galaxy, as that would only sabotage the Sith, and he knew Palpatine would be thinking the same way. The Clone Army project was underway, as well as the Separatists, but both were years away from being complete. They would have to finish this between themselves, and fast, before it got ugly. Plagueis is curious about Palpatine's apprentice. He was powerful, no doubt more than Maul. He wonders where Palpatine found him. How long has he been training him, and what's his background? Could he be Palpatine's son? He didn't have time for these questions, as he knew he couldn't get the answers. Plagueis contacted Palpatine on Coruscant and tells him they must end this infight before it interferes with the Sith's plan and sabotages 1,000 years of planning. They cannot call for a truce, as that is not the way of the Sith, and therefore the only way left is to fight to the death. They plan to meet on Axor Prime for the final confrontation the following day. Plagueis, Dooku and Maul stood ready as the ship carrying Palpatine and Anakin lands. They walk out with confidence, almost as if their victory was assured. But Plagueis didn't let this worry him. He knew he had the upper hand here. Plagueis tells Anakin he's sorry it came to this. He wanted them to be better than the Sith of old, but there's no going back now. Palpatine thanks his master for his teachings, but the time for him to take the mantle of Dark Lord of the Sith is today. They all ignite their lightsabers and rush forward. Plagueis taking on Palpatine again, while Anakin takes on Dooku and Maul. The room explodes into motion instantly, Palpatine crashing his blade against Plagueis with precision. No wasted movements, just pure mastery. Lightning flickers between them in short bursts, each testing the other. Across from them, Anakin drove forward aggressively, taking on Maul and Dooku both at once. His style is raw, but controlling, mixing heavy strikes with sudden bursts of speed. Dooku recognizes instantly that this is not a normal apprentice, as he parries Anakin with precise counters, whilst Maul looks for an opening. Meanwhile, minutes have passed, while the fight between Palpatine and Plagueis escalates. Palpatine is aggressive, faster, and smiling even as he fights. He is enjoying this, while Plagueis realizes something is wrong, something he hasn't foreseen. In his mind, he wonders how Anakin is still alive, how the apprentice has not been defeated by Maul and Dooku, and he pauses as Maul screams out in pain. He looks over to see a red lightsaber through Maul's chest, but it wasn't Anakin's blade, it was Dooku's. Palpatine cackles, Plagueis calling out to Dooku, screaming out, "What has he done?" Palpatine continued to laugh, taunting Plagueis that he was so blinded by his fear that Dooku has been his ally this entire time. Deception is the way of the Sith, and Palpatine proclaims he has mastered this. Plagueis drops his head. He truly has been defeated, and Palpatine has won. He will not run. That is not the way of the Sith. He raises his blade as the three rush forward. He lasts a few seconds until one by one, the blades of Dooku, Palpatine and Anakin enter his body, destroying his two hearts and ending his life. This was significant. Palpatine has now risen to the rank of Dark Lord of the Sith. There was a shift in the galaxy and Force. had just taken place, but the rest of the galaxy was none the wiser. A few years into the Separatist movement, Dooku and Palpatine met privately many times, and Palpatine discussed how Plagueis' plans for the galaxy were not what Dooku would have wanted. He wanted quiet control of the galaxy, to rule secretly, without creating a strong and efficient government leadership. With this, Dooku agreed to join Palpatine, with promises of building the galaxy up together, which Dooku foolishly accepted. Anakin's power only increased over the next couple years until the Clone War officially began. He fought alongside Dooku and the Separatists, convincing the Jedi Council that Dooku was the Sith Master and Anakin was the apprentice, which allowed Palpatine to hide in plain sight. Anakin's true power increase came during the war, where he was tested against countless Jedi, always successful, and even those on the Council were scared to face him. After 3 long years of war, Anakin, Dooku and Palpatine sat in the Chancellor's office on Coruscant together. They drank in celebration and raised their glasses to the Sith Order, that after tonight, all of their goals will have been achieved. Palpatine executed Order 66 as Anakin and Dooku went to the Jedi Temple. As Palpatine went to the Senate, Dooku and Anakin were ruthless as they led the clones into the Jedi Temple with no mercy and one goal: destruction. The fires of the Jedi Temple still burned as the last screams faded into silence. Coruscant had changed overnight. What was once the heart of the Jedi Order was now a graveyard, its halls filled with ash and fallen masters. Anakin stood at the temple steps, looking out over the city, feeling the shift in the Force. Dooku stood beside him, watching the clones secure the perimeter. For a moment, there was a sense of completion. The Jedi were gone, the war had served its purpose, and the Republic was finished. In its place, something far stronger had been born. As they turned to leave, the moment came without warning. Anakin moved first, his blade ignited and struck cleanly. Dooku barely had time to react before it was over. The Count fell, betrayed in the same way he had betrayed the others. His body hit the cold stone floor of the temple. Anakin did not hesitate. This was always his path. There could only be two. He returned to Palpatine's office. The Empire had been declared, and the galaxy had accepted them as their new rulers. Across the stars, the remaining Jedi would be hunted. One by one, they would fall. There would be no survivors to challenge what they had built. But beneath it all, something else remained. Anakin's ambition. He had seen what Palpatine had done to Plagueis. He had done the same to Dooku. This was the way of the Sith. Power was not given, it was taken. As the Empire tightened its grip around the galaxy, Anakin began to look ahead, not as a servant, not as an apprentice, but as the future Dark Lord of the Sith. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to check out our deal over at Fantasy Sabers, where we're giving away a free Dark Father Deluxe with every order over $2.99. Please continue to leave your ideas in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time.